I grew up in grassroots communities, but I also studied business, and I studied business between Oxford and Paris.
Mhm.
So I was working for multinationals, and then I was doing it great in terms of business, but I felt this emptiness of of money, that the emptiness that money could bring you to your life. So I was also in not in dispute, but very far from what my parents taught me, and together with my wife, which is Belgian, so I'm already in between both worlds. Um, we decided to quit the business as usual and the multinational business, and we're trying to understand how to use the force of business for good. Really, we said, well, let's go and let's find out what is working as an alliances, for example. So it's we started in 2007 with this field research where it was a more like a field trip or expedition is a word, and we're interviewing. So it might be like you now, just trying to find out what is going on and how can we actually make a difference and what is working. So we visited many different kinds of business, and then we came back to Mexico in 2009, and we discovered this idea of inclusive business during the trip. That it was a little bit further than sustainability. So we started Sustentavia as an NGO mainly, but somehow the system thinking that I have brought us into visual systems of impact evaluation, because most of the people at that time, and I think it's the same now, like with carbon, for example, they think that there is a metric that is a silver bullet, but reality is systemic. And as you know from psychology, you are the sum of your context somehow. So you materialize yourself after all your experiences that you have, but you cannot say that is because you have money that you are happy or because you don't that you are unhappy. So it is more complex than that. And then, well, I work with this system and it was very successful. So more than 100 projects, and I work in about 14 different indigenous cultures. And in 2011, uh, I went deeper into sustainability and I got to learn about biomimicry. And therefore, I prepared myself as a biomimicry professional. I certified myself as a biomimicry professional. And I did a program that it was 2 years in 7 different countries. And I was getting to know different kinds of ecosystems all over the world, and in a multidisciplinary approach with we're 16, and we're from 4 different disciplines. So biology, business, engineering, and design. I was sharing a cohort with people from IDO. In that time, design thinking was just emerging, and people from National Geographic, or I don't know, they were just United Nations. Amazing people getting there, half women, half men, half US, half from the world, and into the wild in nature. So to better understand ecosystems. And we took the family. My first kid was 3 months old, and I went to the Yucatan Peninsula, so the Mayan Peninsula in Mexico. And we spent there, between there and Mexico City at some point, but for years. And I started to explore there more the bioart side regarding nature as a main element, and understanding how it is not about one community, but it is really about a bioregion. So how to put together all this bioregion and then bringing a possibility of connecting the knowledge around local people. So when I did this, I went into, well, we needed to come here to Belgium, to come back to Belgium. And that was 2015. And so I saw that everyone was kind of hypnotized with the phones and the screens, and that most of the people, they were not really understanding the concept of nature anymore. And that was very shocking for me because I was in isolation. So it was like getting unplugged of the system and then coming back and seeing that everything was changed and not for the best. But at the same time, I was listening globally, more things going into regeneration or evolution or nature. So I thought it was just the beginning also of something different. And so I did this 7Vortex platform, which you will see afterwards. But that was my attempt, and I designed together with my wife, who were in Licuyo, my attempt to bring different intention to technology and business. And now it has more than 400,000 visits and 4,000 cities. Countries where about 160. And so I was trying to put an information system for humanity, because we regard with disrespect local knowledge, no matter where. So it is really about your titles and about the science that you can bring. And we forgot about the experience that the local people and the elders could bring to every community in the world. And that doesn't apply just for what they are calling the global south, but it is really like in UK or wherever you have such a vast experience, and we don't respect that. So how can we actually connect information that help us to reach out the next level as humanity? So I was very much into, well, we belong to the same species, so all the species, they seem to know what they are doing except for us. And most of the relationships, evolutionary relationships towards the longer term, works around collaboration. And competition is something that you do more do or die situation. And of course it happens, but then I think we need a different approach. And in 2020, I got approached by a American company, Regenerative LLC, and they asked me to do a virtual Gaia. So now we are partnering in this, and this is somehow my story. Mm-hmm. So then I have 7 slides, and that's it. But that was the most complex one. Until here, you have any question?
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that you're going to tell me more about these projects anyway, but I was just wanting to ask you, like, zooming out from all of those things at the moment, what would you say is like the main thing that motivates you now, like your main mission behind all of these different things?
It's especially not a machine. It's nature. Yeah. So I'm trying to, well, what I understood is that we've been following, for example, a vapor machine as an economic model. What could happen if we follow an ecosystem instead? Yeah. And if we want to be aligned with the context, then we have to listen the rules that the context are giving us, instead of trying to push our own rules, because like kids, like small little kids. And in like deep in my heart is more about my family and my kids and my own life. So as I told you, I grew up in a family that has been pushing social change for many generations, I would say. So I don't know, sometimes people, they just wake up and they want to kill someone as hunters. And some other people, we just want to do good. And we try our best with all the mistakes that you can do in the way that you try. Yeah. My kids are now about 7, 8, and 10. So I think my parents did the difference, and I appreciate that they keep doing it. And I wanted to give at least the same to my kids.
And so your kids grew up largely immersed in nature then before you came to Belgium?
The first 4 years, yeah. And then we came here, and that was another shock. Yeah. But that's also nice. Like, we need to be nimble and adaptable. Yeah. And they need to learn. Like, for example, for me, it was important to not to have anymore this perspective of colonialism. because I don't think it's helpful in general.
Yeah.
Like there are good people everywhere, and there are bad people everywhere as well. And colonialism is very fractal, so it's also applied in Mexico in many ways inside our own society, and racism as well. So I think my idea is more about building critical connections and following with the voices that want to keep moving forward instead of like pushing backwards.
So you're saying like this language of colonialists and the colonized is not helpful for moving.
I think for some people it is, and I respect that. But for me, it is not bringing solutions. It is bringing awareness, and maybe we just all need to be aware. I consider that I'm aware enough to live in the other side of the equation, and understanding that even that the whole system, economic system, is working for Europe, including UK and United States, and I don't see lots of people super happy around. So it is kind of a shame that the machine is working like this, because we are putting a machine to work like this, and we're creating deserts, and piracy was a English creation. And so is that helpful? I don't know. Like, I think you were not there in this forum. I wasn't there in this forum, and we have the opportunity to share reality and this present, and we can build at least one step for the next generation to do it better. And if you and me, we can try to make things better, then that's already a big difference. And I think these positive connections are important, and that's what matters to me. Like maybe in UK or in Mexico, there will be people that really matter about revenge, or I don't know. It's not my case.
So yeah, I'd love to hear more about what is 7Vortex.
So 7Vortex is our company that is based in Belgium, and we like to say that we are more, our intention, as you say, that you wanted to do positive impact. In this case, is to do creative healing, because it is not just about science or data, but it's really about applying creativity and imagination on how to heal ourselves and the planet. And this is a life project. So instead of having just a business value proposition, we felt when we quit it all in 2006 that we needed to find a life project, because this is what it's all about living, about a life journey. So I did it together with my wife, and this is the company. And the vision was how to find harmony between ourselves and our habitat. It doesn't matter where we live, but understanding that we are just one other species in the Isle of Blue, as I like this concept of Isle of White. I think the Isle of Blue is really cool as an idea in the galaxy. And so, as I said, from our story, we wanted to embody biomimicry business and technology, and I think it's more relevant for the present to say regenerative business and technology, but inspired by nature and aligned with life. So this is what we do. It is not just regenerative as a positive concept, but it's really regeneration and the whole inspiration from nature that makes us different from most of the things. And we believe that instead of this doom and gloom, you say, yeah, we need beautiful narratives, because we need inspiration and we need to do it differently and better. So if we are always kind of getting shocked, like this shock doctrine, as Naomi Klein like to say, and she's right, like two important things or two powerful feelings are fear and love. So I prefer to go towards love and inspiration than being afraid of living. So in 2009, this is the methodology that we developed for impact evaluation. This is 7Vortex. this is virtual Gaia, and this is what we are doing now.
I mean, yeah, that's the next place I wanted to go, was just to ask, yeah, what specifically does that look like for you in terms of, yeah, I guess the day-to-day work, and also if you have these specific different projects, I'd love to hear about them.
Yeah. Well, in 2009, as I say, we started Sustentavia. And in Sustentavia, we have this is our NGO. And I'm using the same kind of elements everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It was about territorial development, impact evaluation, social marketing. We work with one or many of these companies. Mm-hmm. But this evaluation schema looks like this. So, for example, I got inspired from the trees, because business are really focused on one picture. But when you see the tree rings, then you see the unfolding story of the context in interaction with the trees. So I said, well, if we can see the story like this, it might be interesting for seeing where you come from, but also having a systemic perspective on what we're doing. So if you want to understand impact, I said, I think it's about you want to take the better decisions for your investment to make the difference in what you're investing. And of course, we learned that putting more money into the people could be better, because this is how we've been taught. But sometimes when you put more money in some people, UK, I totally see the same case. They go to the pub and they drink and they hit women, or they fight in between themselves. So money and alcohol is a close relationship that it is not always positive. So do you want to like bring this type of behavior to the societies that you are trying to help, or you want to make a difference in a different way? So we developed this gradient, like from the risk to the excellence, and then the things that are in between, and with different layers. So the individual, the household, the community, and the project. And the project as organization, process, and market. So it was very business driven, but at the same time very human driven and ecosystemic driven as well. It depends on the goals of the funding. So we helped them to better understand what kind of things they were doing to organizations like Walmart, Ashoka, and like many projects, different kinds of projects. But this brought something interesting, that is translation tool in between indigenous and financial people, which like indigenous, they get it, like they live in nature. But when you do everything from your desk, it's very difficult to acknowledge the context. So that is how I see that finance is doing the job. Like they are just looking into spreadsheets and looking into numbers and not realizing what is the consequences that they are having there, which might not be even their fault, but that is the way that it is. So this is one, and these are the rings. Now I'm using the rings for Costa Rica Regenerative, and how to, like, I did it for about 10 years, and then I moved into 7Vortex. 7Vortex is like a collective intelligence tool, and it is free, except you want to make your curations private. But so you can imagine that by doing all these kind of systemic approaches, then I was really intrigued by the fact that we didn't see systems as a whole. So how to bring this systemic narrative, but since I did it after studying ecosystems, then I wanted to bring also the ecosystemic perspective. And in biology, I found the ecological interactions, or let me see if I have it here. The ecological interactions, or the biological relationships, are crucial in the conversation. So this is what we call a deep pattern. So, for example, if we are about to understand the markets, then I was saying how an ecosystem works, because it is really about the economic system that we need to make something about. So I cannot see how, if you cut a forest, the only accountability that you have, it is on the money that you have to pay to the people, the fuel that you put into the machine, and the transportation expenses somehow. And so that brought me to understand this idea of energy exchanges in the biological relationships. And these are the exchanges. So when I saw this, I understood that competition was minus minus. And I said, that's why it's so expensive to do it all the time, because you are losing energy. So you don't want to keep losing energy in general. Where collaboration, it's plus plus. It doesn't mean that collaboration will always bring you to a positive thing. You can collaborate for harming someone. And that is also part of the ecosystem. So there is not right or wrong in nature, but as you express it, intention matters. So what are you willing to do, and how you want to leave your footprint in a way. So if you see it, these are the 6 types of biological relationships or ecological interactions, and these are the 9 energy exchanges. So in some of them, there are like 2 ways. When you see system thinking now, they are cause effect. But what I learned from nature is that it is not cause effect, it is both. And this is important because indigenous cultures taught us about you are me and I am you, or the yin yang. And by just saying I affect you, then I don't see that by doing something wrong, I also affect myself. So we need to understand that it's always a 2-way relationship in whatever we do. And ecosystems and science and biology teach us about this, but they just use it for food chains. So how to make use of this for narratives, like systemic narratives, and how to connect these personal narratives. So it really depends what you want, what story you want to represent here. But for example, this is about the story. So the eelgrass is predating the CO2. So this is not specifically a wrong relationship, but it is just an energy exchange that we need to acknowledge and how it is happening. But the CO2 is killing the story.
Okay, so this is really like, yeah, systems thinking, which I always find strange that we even need a name for that, right? That it should just be common sense and obvious. But yeah, visualizing all of the interrelations between everything so we can kind of get a clearer idea.
Yeah, and as a psychologist and coach, you might be interested in other ones that are done by students in Colombia.
Oh yeah.
So this is, for example, let's go with this one. So this is a girl from Colombia that is understanding the social relationships.
Okay.
But it doesn't come from a database. This is very important because there are some tools now that you see as graph tools, which are really cool, but they like to use databases. So for me, it's just the same old thinking represented in a graph. That makes me feel better, and I think I will be more proud of belonging to a species that adds value to the territory and to the planet as a whole, and one that is actually killing its own habitat. It's just common sense, as you say. I don't know why we need to discuss this and to document it.
What would you imagine as your like ideal application of this? How would it be used?
Yeah, I think it should help us to connect knowledge around nature, and it should be multi-generational. So it should last there for reminding us what we have extinguished, and to remind us that there is a genius in nature that we don't want to lose. but we rather understand it. So this use of nature is also humans, right? And so if we can put this on the top of the territory, this is something that I am also doing. I think it's beautiful. So as technology is evolving, we can keep evolving this thing. But I don't know, like the civil band of a radio kind of thing. That's how I envisioned it in the beginning. But it is not about just science. Science could be there, but it is more about your narrative, my narrative, and then how we can gather something that doesn't come from a database or from a survey or from structured data, but unstructured in many ways. I can show you virtual Gaia.
Yeah. What is virtual Gaia?
So,
I'm curious.
Virtual Gaia is the latest, well, not the latest, but let's say the one that is having a lot of energy right now. And so when you think in systems, I was also envisioning this idea of is the planet a system? Yes or no? And then if it is a system, then why we are not studying it as a system? Why we keep studying it in isolation, like as science is doing? So I say, well, let's help these guys of regenerate and let's partner with them. But then let's also go into how the planet looks like. And I'm using the One Earth bioregions. So instead of having political divisions, we have bioregional division, which is something that we haven't seen before in the planet. Like as well, they have it, of course, but together with the watersheds. And then I was in the climate. I put humidity and wind, but especially humidity is related to oxygen and water and to the veins of the planet. So we can see that it is around the Amazon. So we like to think that the Amazons are the lungs of the planet. But then when you do like this in the equator, then I hope it's going to be really evident that our lungs are part of one sphere. So our system works by filtrating everything in the equator. And this happens to be not the global south, but the tropical core. And this is just a big misunderstanding, because when we say global south, it is around here, but it is not the tropical core. So if as humans we will take care of the planet, then it should be around the tropical core, the first thing that we need to do, because it is the mega biodiversity is there. And there are mega diverse countries. And also indigenous knowledge, mainly. And this is just something that came from the experiment. But if we take these ones out, let me just put it in black, so we have a better contrast.
And this, I guess, is coming from a lot of databases, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You've got a lot of different things feeding into this.
Yeah. So I'm using technology. So these are the gases. It's not in the Amazon, right? It's in the cities. What we call developed parts of the world. And this is just a 6-hour time delay. But it's very interesting because it gives you another perspective of what we think. So I still don't know why we keep pushing the idea of being developed to pollute more.
Yeah.
And I don't know why we call it developed when it is about war and pollution. So this is one of the narratives that I would like to change and to get into the tropical core. So, and also like 7Vortex, these systemic maps or knowledge ecosystems, or vortex as I call them, they are related to the place. So for example, this is something that is happening. Well, this is kind of the same of the school in Bogota. So this is a narrative that belongs to this space.
Okay. Wow. And now, I mean, it's really becoming clear what you mean now with collective intelligence. Yeah. Yeah.
So you can see that everywhere, but also something that I realized is that we needed to have more collaboration. And so in the some of the networks that I'm working with, I wanted them to be seen. So such as biomimicry, ecosystem restoration camps. So we can build this hope on what we are doing, that we are not alone. And this is what I'm working now as well. How to visualize them in a way that are not just overlapping, but actually you see something more like populated. And I'm about to bring Kate Raworth also hired me a couple of years ago for using 7Vortex. Daniel Wall was also around. John Fullerton from the Capital Institute. So that's why they're there, because I've been in contact with most of them at some point.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, I have this feeling now like I'm looking at something really, really important, you know, and I'm thinking like, why don't we use this in schools when we're teaching about geography? And, you know, why are we just hit all the time with the, yeah, like you said, the political divisions, right? And yeah, it's the same way we study medicine, right? Everything is reduced to this individual tiny part. And
so my wife is more about personal health. And we like to say that we are about planetary and personal health, and we need this technology to connect everything. If we go to the regions, then what I'm doing as an application, especially in Mamoni Valley Preserve, it's our use case. So we see that the markets are not working towards carbon offsetting, because first of all, they don't have clarity on how to measure it. And secondly, because it's the same approach, like they are just looking for one variable to solve a big problem, which is not right. And we need to also listen to the local people. So the rings are applied here in a way that if you understand the ecosystem and the bioregion, then how is it functioning? What is the functional ecology, health of the region? How water is there? How soil is healthy or not? The air, the energy. As we know from Jared Diamond, that the collapse of civilization starts in the cities, because we are committing ecocide towards our context. So if we want to take care of what exists, we cannot pay for the time to move faster. So we want to keep all forests alive, and not acknowledging that they are the most important pieces in the current equation, and then from there trying to make everything better for everyone.
it's amazing to me how, you know, as humanity, even though we've degraded the planet so much, that creating technology uses so many resources, that from that we can create this kind of, yeah, almost like hive mind version of the earth where we can bring together our intelligence. So that's,
yeah. And if we can do a good business, then it is not against the system. It is really bringing the system into a whole new level.
yeah. And so what do you see as the biggest barrier for that, really? Because you said obviously when you came to Europe and you see everyone is, yeah, like under the spell of their phones, do you feel like there's still a long way to go with shifting people's mentality?
Yeah. So I think it's not especially their fault, because they've been gardening for hundreds of years right now. So they don't know what is a healthy ecosystem anymore unless you have traveled closer to the tropics. So it is not in their hardwiring
Yeah.
the ecosystem thinking. So I think it is partly sad, but so if you are thinking about the system, is this shift of mentality, and since they've been always in the fear situation, because as colonialists anywhere in the world, is about violence and killing the other one and imposing yourself through violence to the rest one. So as I said, it is a two-way relationship. So you know that they are coming back. And it's based on fear. So there is no interest of this society in changing, because that will bring more fear for them, because they know that, or we know, since I'm here, we know that we haven't behaved in the best way. And that is scary, because you can lose so many things. But I think we are at the right position in time to make the difference and to try to bring abundance to everyone else before we lose ours.
Yeah.
If we wait too long, then there might not be a choice for others than just to migrate here.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, wow, I really want to thank you for sharing your work, and I'd love to explore these tools more later and play around with them and see. And yeah.
Feel free, and thanks for the opportunity, for listening as well.